he will comply with the federal government's request.
Miami-Dade's mayor orders illegal immigrants wanted by the feds to be held in county jails until immigration can pick them up. The mayor says it's a no-brainer.
No hate, no fear. Refugees are welcome here.
Protesters converge at airports around the country, including Miami, against the president's executive order blocking foreign entries.
I always call them the dishonest media, but they treated me nicely.
A senior Trump advisor says the media got it all wrong and it should keep its mouth shut. Will we? Not on the roundtable today.
Nope. Good morning. As we come on the air today, South Florida and the nation is dealing with the fallout of President Trump's promises kept, his executive orders suspending immigration by refugees.
And another executive order was the crackdown on so-called sanctuary cities, communities where local governments basically shield undocumented residents from federal law enforcement and deportation. President Trump's order threatens to cut millions of dollars in federal funds to cities and counties that are deemed sanctuary cities or counties. Miami-Dade was listed as one of them. Mayor Carlos Jimenez denies it, and to prove it, on Thursday of this week, he was the first mayor in the nation to publicly reverse its detention policy. He says the county will keep illegal immigrants behind bars, people who are wanted by immigration and customs enforcement.
And we will talk all about that today with our guests. Russell Benford is deputy mayor of Miami-Dade County, who oversees public safety and the police department and the county's jail system. And Howard Simon is the executive director of the American Civil Liberties Union of Florida. He and the ACLU late this week, in fact, officially criticized the mayor's decision as hasty and premature. And we welcome both. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Good morning. Gentlemen, we're very glad you're here. Mayor Benford, almost as soon as President Trump issued this order on sanctuary cities, it was really shortly thereafter that Mayor Jimenez said, yes, we'll make these changes, we will comply. Why did he act so quickly?
Well, Michael, I think for a very long time, Mayor Jimenez has been consistently saying that Miami-Dade County is not a sanctuary city.
Well, he has told me that on numerous occasions.
And he said it publicly. We've expressed that both to the federal government and to the residents of Miami-Dade County. We've never been a sanctuary city. Miami-Dade County has always worked with the federal authorities with respect to enforcing the laws of our nation.
Right. When people are arrested, as soon as they are booked in, their names, their fingerprints are made available to the federal law enforcement community, right?
Yes. Every time a person is booked into Miami-Dade County jails and they're fingerprinted, we all know the picture and the fingerprint, that fingerprint goes to both the state of Florida, FDLE, and it also goes to the FBI. And then from there, it's disseminated to various federal agencies.
You know, I think for our discussion today, it's probably really helpful to define what a sanctuary city is, Howard. And there are no official sanctuary cities in Florida. But how is it that, what is that designation? What does that mean?
Nobody knows. I don't think I don't think the president knows. I don't think Mayor Jimenez knows. Look, it's a political term. It's not a legal term.
Although there are cities who adopt that, like San Francisco says we are a sanctuary city.
But does it mean that a city that's not going to cooperate with immigration authorities? Does it mean a city that is going to respect the constitutional rights of the residents of that community? Does it mean a city that provides services without regard to immigration status? Who really knows? It's a political term that's thrown about.
Howard,
in this particular case, it means that if you refuse to detain people at the request of the federal government in county jails.
All right, well, that was the sticking point for the Department of Justice. And the mayor and Deputy Mayor Benford and others said we can fix it by saying, yes, we will hold them. So what's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that is that the mayor has got to stop seeing this as just a matter of dollars and cents. This is a matter of human rights as well. You can hold somebody in a jail, but get a warrant. Get a judge to issue a warrant. You have to get probable cause and provide that to a judge. Holding somebody in a jail beyond the time when they should be released is essentially an arrest. You can do that if you got a warrant from a judge and you have probable cause. Beyond that, what you're doing is unconstitutional, and cities have been sued and have had to pay out damages to people who have been unconstitutionally detained throughout the country.
That in fact, though, was prior to, I want to say 2013 or 14, just a couple of years ago, right, Russell? That was the county did that. And the change was, I remember Sally Heyman, the commissioner, wrote this resolution. The change was about dollars and cents because the federal government was not reimbursing the county for that extra, and it's only a 2-day hold.
Yes, and if I could be, I want to be clear on a couple points. And Howard talked about this as a political definition, and I want to differ. In May of 2015, the Department of Justice, Office of Inspector General issued a report, and it talked about cities that warranted further investigation as quote-unquote sanctuary cities. So this is not a political issue. It has been defined in 2016 by the Department of Justice. Miami-Dade County was on that list. And on almost a weekly basis, we've been communicating with the federal government to try to get Miami-Dade County off of that list. And Glenna, you're correct. In 2013, in December, the Miami-Dade County Board of County Commissioners passed a resolution that talked specifically to the fact that we would not honor the detention holds unless the federal government reimbursed us for those 48 hours that we were holding people per their request.
Russell,
so it has and always has been a financial issue.
Russell, Miami-Dade is not like Palm Beach and Broward counties, where, to further Howard's point, when ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, wants somebody, an illegal immigrant who's been arrested, who has a detainer, those counties go to, say to ICE, go to a federal judge, get a warrant, and once you show us the warrant, we will surrender this person to you. Why doesn't Miami-Dade County do that?
Well, Michael, to be clear, we've always worked with ICE. Even since the resolution was passed in 2013, we worked with those immigration officials to have access to the individuals.
You work with them, but essentially it is one law enforcement agency saying to the other, the county jail system, hold this person, even though I'm just a law enforcement agency asking another law enforcement agency without the power, the authority of a court.
And I know there's a lot of debate right now as to whether that's a request or a requirement. Mayor Jimenez has made a decision that, and his viewpoint is that he will follow the laws of this country. And there was a debate going on in the courts and in our federal government. And at this time, we feel that the detainer requests are legal. There has not been any. The court has said it's not. And we will work with the federal government to communicate and to hold people until they're picked up. And I want to be clear, they will be held for 48 hours.
No, it's not 48
hours. And after 48 hours, we will release those inmates.
It's not 48 hours. It could be as much as 5 days. It's not the law of the country. There is no legal authority whatsoever for the federal government to require local governments to comply and be dragooned into the immigration system. There's no congressional authority. There's no federal law. The 10th Amendment prohibits it. It's why cities all over the country are standing up and resisting it. And, I want to say, I like this mayor. This mayor has been very supportive of a lot of the important things that we've worked on police community relations, LGBT rights, lots of things. But this is a mistake. This is really a rookie mistake from a very experienced politician. And I regret seeing him digging himself deeper in a hole by saying it's a no-brainer. It's not about dollars and cents. It's about human rights. To detain people without a warrant from a court is to violate their rights. The same way in which police can't pick you up on your way home from work and put you in jail, they need a warrant from a court to do that.
Howard, that said, there are opponents to that who will say, look, these people are A, in this country illegally, B, they've committed some crime that put them in jail in the first place. There are people who will say, why not take the extra measure for someone who is here illegally and a criminal to make our streets more secure?
Right. I'm glad you said that, because the ugly stereotype that I think is being fomented by our new president is that people who are here undocumented are all security threats and dangerous criminals. And look, we live in a county in which 50% of the people in this county were born somewhere else. Everybody probably knows somebody who's undocumented. People who could be picked up may have been here for 20 to 25 years, have and may have been picked up for driving on a suspended license. Not every undocumented immigrant in Miami-Dade County in the United States is a violent criminal. That is this ugly stereotype that our president is trying to foment, but it's false.
We should point out that one think tank says that in Miami-Dade County and Monroe counties, there are maybe 150,000 people who are here undocumented. Don't know how many in Broward County. Russell, the dollars and cents at stake here is sizable. Yes. Mayor Jimenez said that it was roughly $350 million in federal grant money, other federal monies coming to Miami-Dade County for various programs that the spigot might have been turned off. Was that the threat?
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't call it a threat. The president was very clear about that. And to be clear, I mean, we are a community of immigrants. People come from all over the world, but we're also a community of laws. And Mayor Jimenez has made it clear he is going to follow federal law. With respect to the financial part of it, the executive orders talked about the communities that did not comply with federal law and did not work with the federal government were at jeopardy of losing those funds. Yeah. In Miami-Dade County, we're talking about over $355 million that fund programs for our residents every day, programs like Head Start. 7,000 children tomorrow will go to a classroom that's funded by Head Start. Our domestic violence shelters, we have police officers that are funded by federal funds, our body cameras. I mean, these are services that are very important to our residents, and we're going to maintain those services.
Excuse me, I would point out that cities like Los Angeles, Boston, maybe Chicago, and other cities, mainly with Democratic mayors, have said we are going to challenge the right and the ability of Washington to take away money, which we have already sent because it's taxpayers' money. And so let's kind of wait and see how this plays out. Mayor Jimenez didn't want to wait and see. I mean, he acted, just, within 24 hours of the executive order.
And Michael, I would disagree on the point that Mayor Jimenez acted way before that. He has said from day one that Miami-Dade County is not a sanctuary city. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people will try to characterize us as that because we're not, and that's a source of a lot of confusion.
You know what, let's, I know you want to answer that. We'll pick up right there when we come right back. Quick break. Great to have you with us this morning. We are back now with our guest, Russell Benford, Deputy Mayor of Miami-Dade County, and Howard Simon, the Executive Director of the ACLU in Florida, talking about Miami-Dade's avoidance of being tagged as a sanctuary city by going ahead and honoring ICE immigration detention holds for undocumented immigrants in jail. And we were just talking about, can President Trump go through with his threat to withhold federal money? You talked about the 10th Amendment. I mean, does the federal government have the ability to say, we're withholding money if you don't comply with what we ask?
Well, look, this is, as I tried to say before, we have to stop only thinking, the mayor really has got to stop thinking about this only dollars and cents. This is an important issue of human rights. But let me say, the following. Look, I think the president can issue all the executive orders he wants. This is an empty threat. That's not the way our system works. The system doesn't work simply by executive orders. He can issue executive orders, but thank God in this country we have shared power, we have federalism, the courts play a role. He can issue an executive order, and then it's going to be up to the courts to determine whether he has any legal authority to act on that executive order, and it'll be our role to bring him to court. There is no legal authority for the president to. This is an empty threat. Now, I understand maybe the mayor jumped out first because he was fearful of the threat. But if the president should ever try to make good on that threat, Miami-Dade doesn't have to wait. Los Angeles, the state of California, Chicago, New York, this will be resolved by federal litigation in the U.S. Supreme Court probably 2 years from now. And until that's resolved, this is really an empty threat. I regret that the mayor felt it necessary to jump out front.
Well, there's a couple of things I think that we all can agree on, and that is, if the president says he's going to do something, he follows through with his promises. And the mayor's position is, while the courts fight it out for the next 2 years about funding, we're not going to allow the federal government to cut off funding that provides services to Miami-Dade County for the next 2 years while the courts make a decision on what powers the president has or he does not have.
Legal decision? Did you get a legal decision? Or did the mayor get a legal decision from the
did
county
he go
attorney
to the
first?
county attorney and say, look over this executive order? Must we comply with it?
The mayor made a decision that he is going to uphold the laws of the United States of America.
Did he consult with the county attorney before he made the decision?
The mayor's always said that we were not a sanctuary city, and he's been consistent with that language.
Look, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do want to say though, however, there's been a lot of talk about the enforcement, of this. Miami-Dade County Police Department has never been immigration officials. If you call 911, if a police officer responds, he will never ask your immigration status, not in the past, not in the future. Mayor Jimenez has made a commitment and made a promise and made it very, very clear that we are not immigration. The federal government that has their job and our local government has our job. We will uphold the laws and protect our residents here in Miami-Dade County. Yeah. Whoever calls 911, we will respond and we will never ask anyone their immigration status.
I want to say, I think the county's posture on that, with all due respect, is really naive about that we can limit this cooperation only to putting people in jail. The president has issued an executive order threatening to cut off funds. I don't think he has authority to do that, we'll see, but threatening to cut off funds unless you comply with the requests made by federal immigration authority. The president, in effect, has said, everybody in the pool, and everybody jump in the pool. And the county's legal position seems to be to say, Mr. Trump, will it be okay if we only put our toe in the water? I think that's an indefensible legal position. Let me just, look, this is serious stuff. Mm-hmm. I want to ask you, can you facilitate a meeting with the mayor? I'd like to get, I'm not sure how much legal advice the mayor got, but I'd like to get some immigration lawyers and some law professors and others and meet with the mayor and maybe give him a chance, urge him, obviously, to reconsider this. Can we have a meeting with the mayor?
It's like shuttle diplomacy here.
Listen, the office of the mayor is always open to anyone who requests a meeting.
Can you help facilitate that?
And to your point about putting a toe in,
Yeah.
Mayor Jimenez has said he is not going to choose which laws he follows and which laws he doesn't. He is going to be consistent with respect to he is going to follow the law of the
my
land.
God, but listen to what you just said. What you said is that if the president said, unless you apprehend and ask people about their immigration status, or we'll cut off your grant money, then the mayor will be doing that as well?
And I think that's a major problem, because when we have issues like this, folks will make statements like you just made that cause our community to react with fear.
Right.
And that's very unfortunate. And I think it's very disingenuous and very dangerous for you to make that statement, because that's not the case. We're not talking about conjecture. We're talking about what we're doing now.
Right.
Miami-Dade County Police Department has never been an immigration force. We're never going to be that. And you have the mayor's commitment that we're never going to do that.
All right,
so I don't want to make people afraid. Because when folks are injured, when a crime has been committed against someone, they need to be able to feel like they can call 911 and a police officer is going to respond. And we always have done that, and we always will.
So can you help us meet with the mayor?
Yes, I will.
Well, I just want to put on the record here, if I may, that we invited Mayor Jimenez to be in part of this conversation today. We're very glad you're here, Russell. The mayor is out of town this weekend, or else he would be here speaking with you and joining the conversation. Maybe we can have you back and we'll go at it. Howard, I must ask you before we run out of time for this segment, the reaction from hundreds of people in Miami-Dade County was shown at County Hall on Friday. I mean, there were people protesting outside at the Bayfront Park. There was a demonstration, and the theme of that demonstration was Mayor Jimenez, who was born in Cuba, is an immigrant himself, is somehow anti-immigrant. I think that doesn't square with the facts. What do you think?
Well, I don't want to accuse the mayor of being anti-immigrant. I'm not sure that makes much sense. I'd rather focus on the policy decision he made. And I have a lot of respect for this mayor. As I said, I like this mayor. But this is a rookie mistake, short-sighted, premature. He responded regrettably, he made himself and he made our county the poster child for being part of the President Trump's anti-immigration policy. He didn't need to do that. and not only in my view, but in the view of legal experts around the country, the president has no authority to make that threat to cut off funding. And so I don't think the mayor is anti-immigrant. I think he's made a policy decision, and I would like the opportunity to get people in front of him to urge him to reconsider.
Real
like
quickly.
I said, the office is always open, and since 2016, Mayor Jimenez has been clear we are not a sanctuary city.
Russell.
I will call you in the morning to try to get an appointment.
Real quickly, Cheryl Little, who is an attorney with Americans for Immigrant Justice, our go-to, one of our go-to immigration attorneys in town, and her organization put out some statistics. And what she had found in the studies were, of all of these people who would be eligible for an ICE detainer, fewer than 2 in 10 have been either convicted or held on very serious or violent crimes, and the bulk of the crimes committed were either minor, as even traffic infractions. Is there an eye by the county to gauge the severity of the crime of the person that you're holding, and so you're not holding someone who is not a threat to the community?
Well, I mean, I think we're always open to looking up at those numbers, but I want to provide another statistic as well. In 2016, there were 80,000 people that were processed into Miami-Dade County jails. Of those 80,000 people, we received 174 detainer requests from ICE. So a very, very small percentage of people, and it is not going to affect our community. I mean, that's a very small number as compared to the number of people that come into our facility.
Got it.
We're going to leave it there. Russell Benford, Deputy Mayor, Miami-Dade,
so
thank you. Howard Simon from the ACLU, thank you. All right, up next. Immigration is just one of many topics we are taking to the Powerhouse Roundtable. It'll be fun. Stick around. Oh, we have so much to talk about this morning with our Powerhouse Roundtable. In fact, we're already talking, so let's get to it. We've got a good group for you.
We do. Andrea Robinson is a veteran journalist who is an editor and reporter with the Miami Times, formerly with the Miami Herald. Ed Pozzoli is president of the Tripp Scott Law Firm in Fort Lauderdale and is an active voice in the Republican Party. And Mark Caputo is the Florida correspondent for Politico and writes the daily Politico Florida playbook,
which we all consume every morning about 7:30.
Voraciously.
We're glad it's there. Don't know what time you get up to file, but anyway. Welcome. We're glad you all are here. So Mark Caputo, this decision by Mayor Carlos Jimenez to immediately comply with this executive order on sanctuary cities, did he move too quickly?
Well, I'd change the verb to cave. I think Carlos Jimenez, a nice guy, I think he got punked. If you read the executive order, which it seems no one has done, it defines a sanctuary jurisdiction as a jurisdiction that does not follow one specific federal law. And that one specific federal law has to do with information sharing with immigration officials. The county currently follows that law.
And for a long time they
plans to. The immigration executive order from Donald Trump concerning sanctuary jurisdictions says nothing about immigration detainers.
However, back in 2013, when the county changed course because of the financial considerations, shortly after, the Department of Justice had a report citing that move might sort of throw the county into consideration as a sanctuary city.
That's fine. That came out because that was an internal memo that was discovered by a kind of an anti-immigration group. Right. But nevertheless, it's not an official name. It's not correct.
Yeah.
And if you read the executive order from Donald Trump, it says nothing about detainment. It says nothing about detainers. It just says if you don't follow this federal law, you are in violation. Well, the county follows that federal law. Yeah. So there are 6 other counties that were mentioned in that federal report, and those sheriffs have said, look, under a court ruling, we just need, as Howard Simon said, a probable cause affidavit. We don't want to hold someone against their will for a crime they did not commit because some guy at ICE said, hold this guy. Mm-hmm. And that's a reasonable position that most people agree with. And for some reason, Carlos Jimenez buckled. For some reason, it appears his lawyers did not read the executive order. Why, I don't know. One more thing to add. That DOJ report was under President Obama. His Bureau of Justice Administration under the DOJ said, hey, if you don't follow this one federal law, which the Trump executive order is based on, we'll withhold funds, justice funds from you. So it's not as if Trump just came out with this stuff out of the blue. Mm-hmm. There is actual precedent, and that precedent was started under Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ed Pozzoli, Broward Sheriff Scott Israel has already said, hey, we comply with all federal regulations. We work with ICE and there's no problem. But Broward has been designated under that same study as a sanctuary county, sanctuary city. But you don't have the same problems in Broward.
Well, they're following federal law. And, you know, Mayor Jimenez come out and say, hey, I'm going to follow the federal law. What's wrong with that? You know, good for him. He came out and said, hey, we're going to follow the law. What is so, everybody gets all hyperventilated.
But they already were following the law.
But everybody gets so hyperventilated about these executive orders. I agree with you. It says, all it says is that they have to notify ICE. That's it. And so before we get all exercised over these things, it's important that we understand what those executive orders are and how far they go. They don't go very far, Michael, and this is a federal law. And when you have a mayor of Miami-Dade County coming out and saying, oh my gosh, we're going to follow federal law, why does that cause people to get so exercised?
Well,
I don't know.
Think that
Andrea, weigh in on
Barbara Sharif, the mayor of Broward County, sent out a memo and saying that we're not a sanctuary city, but we respect the lives of all people. And it was just a very respectful note, and nobody got bent out of shape. Nobody is accusing Broward County of doing anything.
Well, okay,
the reaction has been very different.
But that's as respectful as it is, and I say this very respectfully, that doesn't say anything. That doesn't take a position.
Doesn't say anything.
No, it doesn't. It's
The
very
executive order barely said anything, and yet here we are.
Well, she doesn't have any, look, she's not a mayor in the sense that Carlos Jimenez says,
right,
under the
mayor.
structure.
First among
Well,
equals.
Yeah, you know, so, you know.
he created a conundrum that he didn't have to.
So was this a political move?
No. Look, the political
I don't think
move
he knew what he
happened-
was doing.
The political move happened on the left when de Blasio, who's a failing mayor in New York, came out and said, oh, I'm going to set my morals against this, and I'm going to fight Trump to the end of the time, you know, over this issue.
Well, there have been a lot of mayors that came
Eric
out.
Garcetti in Los Angeles said the same
failed
thing.
mayor
Exactly.
and people, and look, again, goes back to what Mark said. If they read the order, it wasn't so draconian. It was a simple notice requirement about when you have somebody in custody. That's all.
And I think most people, if we polled this, and this is just a guess, would agree that if someone is here illegally and they're arrested, immigration should get a pass at them. That is, should get a crack at looking at them and detaining them. People would also, I believe, would agree that the federal government being in charge of immigration enforcement should pay for that. And
So why not, to the going back to our first segment, if that's the case, why not go to a federal judge with a case and have a federal judge sign off on the detention hold?
That would seem to be a bit much. Why doesn't ICE just provide the information that would be sufficient for an arrest to the counties who have already detained these people? I don't have an answer for that. I was born in Rome, in Italy. If I got arrested on some charge, not that I break the law, there is a possibility that under this order, the way the county is following it now, I could wind up in jail. Some guy from ICE would be like, hey, this guy's from Italy. He's not a citizen. And I could wind up getting detained for days in Dade County Jail for a crime I didn't commit,
How
i.e.
can that
illegal
be?
immigration.
You are a citizen. How can that be for a citizen?
It
in the
already
United States?
happened. And there was a court ruling about it, and the Florida Sheriff's Association told all of its 66 members, Dade doesn't have a sheriff, so therefore it's not 67, that, hey, look, if you arrest someone and ICE wants you to detain them, you need to make sure to have the probable cause affidavit or something in writing from ICE so you're not liable for detaining someone illegally because it already happened.
All right, let's move on, if we can, to sort of the big story of the day, last night, today, which is the executive order banning refugees from anywhere, and also banning anyone coming from the 7 Muslim-dominant countries. And we have, a couple of hundred people who were at JFK Airport in New York who got caught in this limbo.
It wasn't just JFK. It was across the country, the various people who were in the pipeline. So that order really affects those who are already in the pipeline and whether they can enter the United States. But let me provide with some context. Look, in 1980, Jimmy Carter banned
some Iranians.
Iranians,
Not
right?
all, but
Not all,
some.
but some. Okay. President Obama banned Iraqis.
2011.
In 2011. Then you had this act that President Obama signed and put in place that essentially banned the waiver. You could get a waiver without a visa, but now this law then required visas, expressed visas from these 7 countries. So the executive order that President Trump just signed, the 7 countries were in fact identified already by the Obama administration that these folks needed additional paperwork in order to enter the country. So those 7 countries were identified by President Obama. I want to give some context to that.
Yeah, but if I can stop you, I mean, I think the question here, and Andrea, comment on this if you like, is that it appears that Muslims are being singled out for denial for entry into this country.
Yes, they are, and that is right now. Activists are telling people if you don't have to leave the United States to go to any of these countries, do not do it because you won't be able to get back in. You have families that are separated. I have a friend who has family members. She's Iranian, has family members in Canada. They can't come back in. They just bought a house in Key West. They can't come back in.
Can we pick up right there when we come right back in 2 minutes? Stay with us. We are back with our Powerhouse Roundtable this morning. Mark Caputo, Ed Pozzoli, Andrea Robinson, talking about the president's executive orders on immigration. Andrea, you were saying in the last segment that things in your community and from your perspective, you know people who have been affected
by this
right
because
now.
People, and it doesn't just mean the 7 countries in the Middle East, but people are concerned if they go out of the country, are they going to be able to get back in?
There's so much confusion.
There's a lot of confusion, but I think that stems from the rhetoric that people heard during the campaign, and not just with Trump, but his followers and what people are having to live under. So if you are Iranian, but you do have your papers, your documents, you go to vacation in Canada, and now you're stuck and you can't get back to your new home in Key West.
You know,
you're being held up.
Part of this executive order that I think a lot of people find troubling is this 120-day halt to any refugee coming in. And that, Ed, that is really troubling to people who work for human rights, who know that right here, right now, people on planes or on ships who are turned back face legitimate fear of persecution, at worst, death. I mean, that is, weigh in on that part of the executive order.
Look, we have a problem. Everybody would agree at this table that our immigration system in this country is broken. And what President Trump is saying is using the 7 countries that were identified by the Obama administration in a couple of years ago. No, but that's true. It wasn't a Muslim ban. You could say what you want. It's not a Muslim ban, right? But here's the issue. Ultimately, you have to fix the problem and you have to vet. So it's a weighting of, are we going to protect our citizenry on one hand, and are there human rights issues on the other for people outside the country? And for 120 days, we're going to try to fix this and set up a vetting system. I think that's important.
If I may, I just want to make clear, I'm not saying that it is an anti-Muslim executive order. What I'm saying is that there is the strong appearance that there is now a religious test for entrance into the United States, a country founded on religious freedom. And I think that is disturbing.
That goes back to reading the order. That is not what the order says.
Well, I'm talking about what the perception is.
To Glenna's point, there is a gray area here, and this is the problem with the Trump administration. It didn't consult with really anyone about this, and so a lot of people enforcing its immigration orders have no idea. So people who have been vetted, heck, in some cases people who have green cards are being told you can't come in. And I mean, those people have been vetted more than you or I probably.
Who work for the military, who serve as translators.
So if the order specified people who did not already have a legal right to be here, and it specified that and exempted those people, I think that the order would be a much better both legal and political standard.
But it doesn't. So people are left to their own devices and coming up with their own interpretations, and now we have chaos.
Yeah.
But there's chaos with this particular administration. We're on what, day 11? No,
but
day 9?
Don't we
Well, that's what I would like you all to kind of weigh in on, is the first week of the Trump presidency is dizzying. It is hard to catch your arms around everything that has happened.
Kind of like his campaign.
Mark, a lot of presidents, and I have covered many, ease into it. They have a honeymoon period. It's a kind of a little romance that goes on with Congress. I mean, none of that.
Well, he doesn't have a romance with Congress as much as kind of an S&M relationship with them. I mean, he is in charge of them. They have no safety.
We'll be right back. No.
They have no safety word. And so let's face it, he has brought them to heel. He's also doing what he said he'd do, so really none of us should be that shocked by it.
Well, no, even my mom said that this morning. Hey, he's done what he said when he was campaigning that he was going to do, so no one should be shocked. And I don't know that people are necessarily shocked, but the pace you don't know where this man is going. We're in a new world order, and nobody knows what's coming down the pike, and everybody is scared.
Well, I would say this way. I would say this way. I agree with what you're saying, that the pace of it is fast, but we do know where we're going because this is somebody who promised things in the campaign, is now living up to them. I jotted down a handful of these things he's done already. Freezing regulations, okay, in minimizing the impact of Obamacare, hiring freeze on the federal government, withdrawing from TPP, ordering expediting of permits for infrastructure, the Keystone Pipeline and the Dakota Pipeline. I mean, my gosh, this is all the things that he campaigned on, and he is making good on it. And I'm going to share with you something. This is why people voted for him. He is not a politician.
Yeah, they voted for them, but they did not realize some of those things were going to impact them directly. You have people who were just hired, supposedly hired from for the federal government, quit their old jobs in the pipeline, because I have a friend who works with one of the agencies, and she said she had to call 3 of the new hires and tell them, we got to freeze you, you can't come.
But to Michael's question, which the last thing to add, and to your point, one of the reasons we're hearing so much noise and Sturm und Drang is that he was elected with a minority of the vote. He is not the majority winner.
He says he was if it weren't for the 3 to 5 million
if he wasn't
illegal votes.
But the reason you're hearing this is that there is a majority of voters who are opposed to him, who did not vote for him, and he is one of the least popular presidents to take office. That's another reason we're hearing a lot of the noise. Yeah. Or sound, or whatever you want to call it.
I'm sorry, we have less than a minute left, but I do have to mention that there was a Trump-like order or action from Governor Rick Scott this week that I thought was fascinating. The Port of Palm Beach and Port Everglades in Broward County were about to sign a memorandum of understanding with the government of Cuba to facilitate trade and travel. And Rick Scott said, I'm cutting off money to your ports if you sign that MOU.
Yeah, he did. And this goes back to, we've discussed this before at this roundtable. A better deal needs to be struck for Cuba on behalf of the Cuban people around human rights. You want to cry about human rights? That deal should have an element of human rights for the Cuban people who live there on the island.
And on that note,
we are going to bring this discussion to a close.
Thanks.
Lady and gentlemen, thank you all for coming in. So much fun to talk with you. All right, still to come, a report from Local 10 News, Havana. As U.S. tourists travel to Cuba, they are finding there are 2 ways to pay and more on the currency confusion in Cuba. Local 10 is proud to be the only local television station in the United States with a crew stationed in Cuba, and that makes us able to provide a unique and unbiased view of what is going on the island.
In this last year, a record number of American citizens visited Cuba, and when it came to paying for things, they encountered this dual currency system, and that can be confusing. Well, Hatzel Vela explains all that in his latest report from Havana.
So the issue of 2 currencies continues to be a topic of conversation, not just here in Havana, but throughout the island. So we're going to take you inside this cooperative and talk to folks about how this help or may not help in their daily business lives. Cuba has a 2-currency system that dates back to 1994, said to have been created as a way to deal with a weak economy. There's the Cuban peso. Then there's a Cuban convertible peso, the CUC or CUC. The value of the CUC is pegged to the dollar, 1 for 1. Typically, tourists use CUCs and Cubans use them to buy consumer goods. If you visit Cuba, here's a way to understand it. Walk into the exchange house with $100 and you will walk out with 87 CUCs because the Cuban government charges a tax on dollars. So in practice, $100 is worth 87 CUCs. If you change that for national money, you will get 2,088 pesos. For every CUC, you get 24 Cuban pesos.
Gracias.
This outdoor market in Playa, a Havana municipality, is a cooperative, meaning the locale is owned by the state, but the individual stands are private. And we learn these small business owners are mainly using Cuban pesos in their transactions. 80 pesos for a sack of charcoal. Want tomatoes? That's 420 pesos a pound. Again, that's national money, the peso, which is worth less than the cook. Uniel Soto says they take both currencies at this neighborhood market, but national money is what they mostly use. He adds any money you make in cooks, you have to switch over to pesos before settling your daily accounts with the government. For this woman, selling eggs, having two currencies is not a big deal because she says when you convert it all, it's all the same, cash in your pocket. As for the future of the currency, he thinks it'd be easier to do business in one currency. She says the government should figure it out, adds that she's not into politics, an answer you get when Cubans are hesitant about what to say on camera.
If you talk to some analysts, they'll tell you that the double currency system is likely not going away anytime soon, especially in 2017, because 2017 is expected to be a tough economic year for Cubans.
Reporting you can see his reports from Cuba on Local 10 News throughout the week.
And coming up next, the president and the press and the new focus on News Consumption 101.
Here is a live look now from our Hollywood beach camp. Cool, chilly, and wet.
And for more now on this taste of winter weather, here's meteorologist Erica Delgado. Erica, hello.
Hi, good morning to you. You're absolutely right. Cold, chilly, and wet has definitely been the story so far on this Sunday morning. We woke up to the temperatures in the 50s, and we're still in the 50s. Right now, 56 degrees in the Miami area, 55 down into Homestead, low 60s down into the Keys. Unfortunately, temperatures will only warm up just a bit more than this. Temperatures will be topping out in the lower 60s later this afternoon. Grab that rain gear as you head out the door this morning. You definitely will be needing it for the majority of the day. We are seeing another pulse of energy, some heavy downpours moving through western suburbs of Miami-Dade and Broward County, possibly within the next 45 minutes or so. So for your forecast today, temperatures again, as I mentioned before, topping out in the lower 60s. The cloud cover that sticks around into the overnight hours. We'll see the rain for the majority of the day, but come early evening hours, we'll begin to see some of that shower activity fizzling out, moving into the Atlantic waters, improving conditions throughout the overnight hours. And just in time for the work week, where temperatures will still be a little on the chilly side, low 50s each morning, but temperatures will be in the low 70s each afternoon. And then come Wednesday into Thursday, just in time for Groundhog Day, we're expecting to be back to where we should be in the mid 70s. Plenty of sunshine. It looks like we'll be rain free after today for at least the next 6-7 days. Lena.
Sounds good, Erica. Thank you. Some notes from the road this week and the extraordinary, exhausting, exhilarating opportunity to cover an historic presidential inauguration. And at a time when President Trump, on day one, kept his campaign narrative going that he and his closest advisors consider the press public enemy number one. In an interview this week, the president's chief strategist, Steve Bannon, told the media to shut up, literally. The latest verbal slap in a year of marketing the media as inept at best and corrupt at worst. Neither of those things are true in the collective. Just like all teachers, all lawyers, all politicians cannot be painted with one broad brush. There are journalists, especially on national cables, with points of view and bully pulpits to share them. And there are instances where free speech results in fake news or alternative facts. That just makes it more important to be an engaged and critical news consumer, gauging sources, comparing information from news outlets, and challenging reporters to back up what they write and what they say. One of the upsides of this brutal campaign year on both sides is no doubt more attention and engagement of we the people. News Consumption 101 should be right up there with civics class because it is part of being an effective citizen. As for shutting up, well, a silenced press is not just unconstitutional, it's dangerous. For all our shortcomings, real or perceived, journalists are a democracy's best bet at keeping good government doing good and doing well. So what do you think? We invite you to weigh in on that or any topic you like in the news.
And we will hear from you on email, Facebook, Twitter, at any of these addresses. Remember, as always, stay informed, get involved, and have a great Sunday.
Bye.